evening, everybody. Meeting of the Board of Selectmen, meeting of August 4th, 2014. Everybody please quiet down. Thank you. Before we start the meeting, we lost one of our... Thank you.
You got to put the phones away, please.
We lost one of our well-beloved citizens. Jim Newman passed away this past Friday night. I had been speaking with Jim actually on Thursday about veterans issues and how the veterans themselves were not stepping up to take positions. We had recently lost Charlie. We lost Frank Carmichael, known as Hoagie. Those two gentlemen were doing a lot of veterans work in different committees, and Jim had a great concern about people stepping up and filling these voids. He was complaining that he didn't know how much longer he could continue to do the job as well. We were taken by real surprise that he passed away so quickly. Jim's passion was for his fellow veterans and for the disabled, and this is an important thing, so I hope the veterans out there listening will step up. Anybody who has a friend that's a veteran, we need some help getting these particular board items filled, and it'd be in the honor of Jim to do that. The funeral is going to be at Cole and Gleason, Route 28, Cranberry Highway. It'll be from 4 to 8 on Wednesday. And I'd like to take a moment of silence in honor and in memory of Jim. Thank you. Roll call.
Okay, roll call. 4 selectmen are present, as well as the town administrator and town council. Selectman Titlebaum should be here momentarily. He was been detained.
Announcements. Mrs. Whiteside.
No.
You all set?
Yeah.
Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Holmes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I just want to, I hadn't heard that about Jim. That's, he's been a good friend to me personally and to Wareham for many, many, many years. And rest in peace is about all I can say, my friend. Rest in peace. That'll be it for tonight.
Patrick.
Okay, I have a couple.
You can put that on.
I have, let's see, on the road and on the spot, college enrollment. Bristol Community College. Representatives will be available from the Bristol, Massasoit, and Cape Cod Community College to assist you with completing admission and financial applications online and in time for the fall admission. Let's see. Contacts, those ready to future their education. Free college admission, financial aid assistance, Friday, August 8, 2014, between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. on the Onset 4 Square Church, 301 Onset Ave, Onset. Bring your 2013 tax reforms or call ahead for what to bring, and the contact is Barbara Sullivan, 508-863-3691. All right, now, as everybody knows, or some of the folks know, we had applied for some licenses, 4 additional all-alcoholic pouring licenses, and apparently we're okay with the legislature at this point, and it's sitting there ready to be acted on. They are specific, and I just want to point out to people that these licenses can't go anywhere but where they were targeted to go. So nobody, if the person decides not to take it, if the business goes out of business, the license goes away. They're specific for locations. It's just the way they do these things when they add to your stock of licenses. To be honest with you, I don't know why they just don't let anybody who has to have a liquor license in these restaurants and stuff have them, but this is the way they do it, and we have to follow the procedures. Okay, that's what I have for you're up.
Just as a follow-up on that issue, there's also a bill in the Senate where they're talking about allowing towns to issue their own liquor licenses for what they call pouring establishments where the alcohol is actually consumed. Senator Pacheco is one of the sponsors of the bill, so I got notification a couple of days ago when we had to also sit there and go through the existing act that we had. So this may solve an issue that's been a long term for the towns. National Night Out is tomorrow night. I believe it starts around 6 o'clock. And that will be up at Lopes Field. I'm not sure if they're having a parade. We didn't get a notice. A lot of times they'll have a parade starting at the pier. Gary? Yes, no?
Can't hear you. They say they can't hear you.
I believe that there'll be a parade at the pier, and then it usually goes up to Lopes Field. Bob, if you want to turn the microphone up a little more. Also, there was an announcement about 2 dams and the Union Pond about work being done. One of the dam projects was $7.2 million, another was $1.1. Problem that we have here in town is that listing the dams by the bill from Senator Pacheco, those dams don't have any relative location to Wareham. It says they're in Wareham, but it's called the Mill Pond Dam. There's no such thing, at least on our paperwork. And the other dam on Route 25, we're not sure where that is. So I've gone ahead and contacted Senator Pacheco's office to get a little more information exactly what's going on, since we've been very active talking about dam repair, etc. So if anybody's thinking that's happening, we don't know where it is yet. We will find out and get the information to the town. That's all I have.
Okay, next is citizens' participation. All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Appointments and reappointments, I have none this evening. And next would be licenses and permits. We have an application for 5 one-day liquor licenses by Dudley Brown, VFW. There he is. All right, so these are for, let me see, we got August the 4th, no, August 10th, August 16th, the 23rd, the 24th, and the 31st of 2014. They're all between 1 p.m. and 9 p.m., and they're all at the Pavilion.
That's correct.
Give us a quick review. Would you like to give us a quick review of what they are for the public?
Couple of them are family reunions, and I think one's a motorcycle rally, and the other one's just a picnic.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, I move we approve the 5 one-day all-alcoholic licenses by provisions of Chapter 138, Section 14, for Dudley L. Brown Post 2846 VFW, August 10th, August 16th, August 23rd, August 24th, and August 31st of 2014 between 1 p.m. and 9 p.m. in the Onset VFW Pavilion.
He's going to stop in a minute. You done?
Yeah, I'm
Second.
done now. I had to get the whole thing in the record.
Motion by Mr. Tropiano, second by Mr. Holmes. Any questions? All
The
in favor?
16th isn't for me, is it? Did
No.
Dolores rent that? Because that's
No.
right next to my birthday.
All right, so
All
next,
opposed,
have
5,
to
0,
abstain.
0.
next up would, let the record show that Peter came in.
I'm sorry, I don't like to interrupt, but none of us.
You can't hear us at all?
Can you hear me?
And you can't hear me at all? Now you can? All right, he'll turn him up a little bit. Sorry about that.
Microphones are on.
Go ahead.
Mr. White just informed me that there's a gentleman who's here for the second night for an appointment to the library trustees. I don't see him on the agenda, I don't see any information in the packet.
I don't have anything for him.
So rather than have a gentleman roll around,
It's not on the agenda, Peter.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's...
Could the gentleman come up here for just a minute? I'll take your name and I'll take care of it.
Sorry about that.
You're all
We'll
set.
try
I'm
to
sorry.
figure out what went wrong,
Thank
what
you.
went awry.
Just come up here for a minute.
You will
number?
be on the next meeting.
Phone number. I'll take care of it. Sorry about that.
All right, so next up is Cedar update.
I haven't got any paperwork on it.
Weren't you here just the other day for this?
Yes. And this was a surprise. I just happened to stop after my meeting.
This is a
to speak
surprise
with
to me as
Selectman
well.
Whiteside. And can you hear me? And discovered the meeting was tonight, not tomorrow night. So,
We didn't do a very good job telling everybody we're switching from Tuesday to Monday. I apologize.
I'll give you a quick three items to,
Okay.
I know you have looks like you have a very busy agenda tonight. Number one, CETA did hired for a parking study for downtown Wareham last year, and they have been working on that, and will be coming into the CETA board on September 15th to give us an update. And then there will be a public meeting at Town Hall Auditorium on September 29th for the community's input. In addition to that, we were notified this week that our grant for 2014 was approved, so we'll be moving forward with that. And at our meeting on September 15th, we will be making decisions on projects for the 2015 grant. So if anybody has anything they would like to let us know that they think is of interest, I'd be happy in hearing from you before that meeting.
Mr. Titlebaum?
I don't have anything to say right at the moment, but I'm sure as I go through this past year's grant, that some things will spring to mind, perhaps some changes, priorities. What I would like possibly at the next CETA meeting that we have with you is some sense of what funds have been expended, where you see the allocations we made last year going, because as we know, these are rolling events, and typically what happens is at some point during the year, CETA comes back to us, they want us to reallocate monies because they had too much for one thing that we put in on the application, not enough on another, and I'd like to kind of get a jump on that if we could, as well as the whole process for the next grant.
Absolutely. We actually get an update every month.
That's what I
when we
figured,
look at
yeah.
it, so
Okay.
more
If
than
you
happy to provide
If you
that.
could share that with us in advance of the next meeting, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mrs. Whiteside?
Yes, thank you. I did share your conversation, our conversation with the Boys and Girls Club and Mr. Sullivan with you about the Hammond School and possibly Council on Aging space. And I congratulate you, and it's too bad that we are eligible for the large amount. It means that we continue to be a community that is recognized by the federal government as one that is really, really struggling. So thank you for getting the money, and it's too bad that we need it.
You guys are doing a great job, and there's really nothing to say. We seem to get quite a few updates from you, so I'm pleased at that.
Mr. Holmes?
Hi, Steve.
You know, I don't remember if I asked you and Sal the other day. I know we spoke about it maybe 2 meetings ago. You know how we got the new Osprey pole put up,
Yes.
right? And I can't, on the top of my head, on the top of my head, I can't think of the word, but I'm thinking of a storybook on a flat. You know, when you walk up to something
Yes.
tells the story. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I think we put them up somewhere downtown, I believe.
I think I had mentioned that there's some business people down there who will donate, right? And we got some citizens who are willing to donate as well. And I just didn't know whether or not you could put that on your list, and maybe if we need a couple of bucks to finish that, if you could maybe help us out with that. I don't know if it would be community, economic development. We're not going to charge for people to read the storybook, but I'm going to try to get some nice pictures this week and next week, because I know some landmarks down in Georgia that have nice ones that I've seen,
Mhm.
you know, sort of show like the history of the Osprey and all that. It'd be nice. And it'd fit right in there next to the pole, too.
And that's
So
on the
people
opposite.
walking over the bridge could see it, right?
Okay.
And I don't think we're talking a lot of money. We just got to make sure it doesn't come out of the town, you know, proper, Mr.
Will do.
Sullivan's budget.
I'll get
Thank
back
you.
to,
But other than that, I think you're doing a great job, and
thank you.
no issues at all.
And I would be remiss in mentioning that Salvador is not with me this evening because we made plans to meet before the Selectmen's meeting tomorrow evening. So we were going to come here together.
He's not going to be smiling when he shows up tomorrow night and you're not there. You're not going to tell him, are you?
Unfortunately, I did
Oh,
already.
you did. Huh?
But we will discuss this and we'll get back to you.
All right.
I'll talk to
I
Salvador.
don't think we're looking for a lot. Just
Okay.
be like under community development, I think. Thank you.
The only other thing we have is, I believe, Everett School, but I don't think you're ready, and I think we have that for next week's agenda for Mr. Sullivan to update us. I think Mr. Sullivan and the CETA director have been talking about possible uses with the Everett School as well.
Yeah, they'd requested a walkthrough on Friday, and I was unable to attend that on Friday morning. I would suggest that, given the time frame, that next week wouldn't be ready. So you'll probably want to look for a little while, a little further out.
You want a couple weeks farther out?
Yeah, because it's connecting with other people on it as well, so.
I'll take care of that. Thank you very much, Gene. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Gene. All right, next up is to vote to accept Grant RE Mooring Fields. Come on down, you're the next contestant. Kind of looks something like an aircraft carrier on land. It can't be.
Gary, if you shut, just hit the button up top on that off twice, and they'll, should disappear on you. There you go.
No,
Yeah, I'll move them through as the discussion goes through.
that's missing.
Good evening. Coming before the board tonight to present a mooring upgrade to 2 mooring fields that we have in Onset as well as Wareham. We started discussions with Massport back in, I want to say, November regarding a program that they were putting in place for environmentally friendly eco moorings, conservation moorings. What these moorings do is we identify areas on DEP maps which they've listed as sensitive with eelgrass and things of that nature. Conventional moorings cause a lot of damage through chain drag and destroying portions of the habitat. And this program that was brought to our attention helps resolve that issue. It keeps all the mooring gear suspended so it doesn't tear up the eelgrass beds anymore. Ms. Joyce, I believe, can explain their end of the program a little better and the reasons for them taking this gigantic step in trying to preserve some of the areas. So,
Go ahead.
Good evening, and Massachusetts Port
You gotta
Authority.
pull that right to you.
Yeah. Get a little closer. Is that better?
Way close,
Okay.
yeah.
So the Massachusetts Port Authority would like to extend a profound thank you to the town of Wareham for its interest in participating in Massport's conservation mooring program. And if it's okay, I'd like to give you just a background on how this program got underway. So in 2011, Massport, and I hope you can all hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's long enough. Just keep pulling, it's got more.
You're good.
There you go. Now you can talk right into that.
Can you hear me now?
He'll get it adjusted.
Gary's the light on?
In 2011, Massport received permits from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection and the Army Corps of Engineers to construct a safety deck at the end of runway 33 left at Logan Airport. And the purpose of the safety deck is to give an aircraft an extra 500 feet at the end of the runway in the event that it overshoots the runway. This particularly comes into play during winter conditions. You pay for other aircraft overshooting the runways during icy conditions. So anyway, we constructed the safety deck during 2011 and 2012. And it encompasses approximately 4 acres into the harbor. It's a well-constructed deck. How this plays into eelgrass is when we constructed the deck, there were 1.5 acres of eelgrass within the footprint of the construction. And environmental laws require mitigation if an important resource such as eelgrass is damaged or eliminated. So Massport had an obligation to mitigate for 1.5 acres at a ratio of 3 to 1. So what we did, and I hope I'm not going to be too much detail, but in 2011, before we actually got under construction, we removed 105,000 shoots of eelgrass and transplanted them in Hull to cover 4.5 acres to give us our 3 elevation. Unfortunately, by the end of 2012, none of the eelgrass that we planted survived. It was an enormous undertaking and an enormous disappointment to us. But the eelgrass did not survive. So we reconvened with the state and with the Corps and other interested agencies. And they said, well, we appreciate you did the mitigation. We're sorry it didn't work, but you're still on the hook to do the mitigation. And my first response was, we're reluctant to do more transplanting because there's no sure outcome. So the Corps actually suggested conservation plans. And so we said, okay, we will pursue that. And through a lot of various studies, we were able to determine, based on information from Division of Marine Fisheries, that conservation moorings are protective of eelgrass habitats. So with your, with the conventional mooring, which consists of a block and a chain, as the tide fluctuates and the boat swings around, if it's an eelgrass habitat, the chain tends to rip out the eelgrass. And eelgrass, again, is a protected resource in Massachusetts and a lot of other states as well. And here's a picture, an aerial photograph. I don't recall which location this is. That shows a mooring field with the scars left from the chain drag. So the advantage of the conservation moorings is that it does two things. Primarily, it does two things. One, it eliminates the block, and we substitute it's called a helix anchor. So instead of having a footprint of like 4x4, at most it's 8 inches. So it has a very small footprint on the harbor bottom. So that's piece number one. The second piece to this is very important. It's called an elastic mooring rope. So in lieu of the chain, it's like a high-tech bungee cord that connects to the shackle on the anchor and eventually ties to the boat. So it basically stretches. And so this is what we're funding. We're funding the conservation mooring road. And the stipulation is we will fund the replacement for any mooring, conventional mooring, in your mooring field that happens to be situated in eelgrass. So if it's outside of eelgrass, then it doesn't meet our criteria. And we have offered to fund up to 62 replacements in eelgrass in the town of Wareham. So and the other part of that is we will fund up to $2,500 per system. So it's 62 times 25. So we're funding up to $155,000. And it has the money, we will provide a check probably in about a month or so, and it has to be deposited into a dedicated account so we can audit to ensure that in fact the money was spent appropriately. So that provides just sort of an overview. Once the installation, we will give you until next May to do the installations, but we certainly are encouraging the town to once they get the check, to move forward with the installations. We do have an obligation to the regulatory agencies, the Mass DEP and the Army Corps, that the work will be accomplished by the end of May in the town of Wareham. We do have 4 other towns that are participating in the program, and they all have time constraints because they are concerned about, field grass losses, and they have been able to show that, in fact, once these systems get in, there is a recovery to the environment.
Mr. Buckminster, do you have anything else?
I'm sorry, you want me to clean this up?
Last year, we received funding to replace our town moorings with the same systems that you're looking at here. And we installed 5 town moorings with the Helix system, as well as this one was called an eco mooring. So all of our gear is suspended at this point. It's cut down the swing. It only expands about 7 feet from its original length. As wind slows down, depending on what's going on tide, the boat will actually rest back closer to the mooring, so it cuts down on the needs for scope. We're really reducing the ratio of chain that we need for a system, a standard system that we allow right now. Our bylaws actually are starting to push in promotion of these systems, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers, which actually have wording in place under the federal regulations that any new or existing moorings that go within a mooring field that has eelgrass is required to go to one of these systems. This is a big undertaking. However, it covers a smaller portion of. We're trying to hit our highest density mooring fields right now. It would be nice if I could do it all, but it's a push in the right direction. And to replace 62 moorings I think is a pretty substantial effort on Massport.
Where would those be, Mr. Buckminster?
We have 2 mooring fields. We divided the moorings between Tempest Knob Mooring Field, which is one of our highest request areas, and it does have eelgrass in it, as well as the Onset Pier Mooring Field on the east side of the pier. We found through a site visit with Ashley Massport, Mr. Slavin accompanied us, and we reviewed the mooring fields on site. I've also spoken with our DMF biologist regarding the area, but we found that area east of the Onset Pier, and that there's a trough that goes around. There's a shallow section, and the eelgrass was pretty heavy in those locations. And one of the moorings in particular, where we could actually follow the chain down because of the season, you could actually see what was described in this picture with the circles from the chain drag, and you could actually see how it was cupped out all the way around the mushroom. So it was definitely showing signs of damage from the conventional mooring systems. So.
Mr. Titlebaum, any questions?
No, I was with Mr. Slave, and I must have been well behaved on the boat, 'cause you don't remember I was there, but this is a good thing. Certainly, the one you pointed out to the east mooring field and Onset, it looked like a bomb crater on the floor with an anchor sitting in the middle of it. And to the extent that we can alleviate some of this, get the program going, using other people's money is always good. I'm certainly in favor of it.
Mrs. Whiteside?
I congratulate you on pursuing continued funding and programs that will improve the environment of the waters of Wareham. Thank you.
Mr. Holmes?
Thank you. I just have 2 quick questions. It's the same picture I have here. With a helix anchor, how deep does that go? It doesn't look like, in the picture, it doesn't look like it's going to hold, it wouldn't hold a rowboat, right? But
The depth of the anchor?
yes.
It depends on the makeup of the bottom. They tend to go 12 to 15 feet deep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I
And
was.
in some situations, they'll go down to a depth of 20 feet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it had to go pretty
And then
deep,
hydraulic-
because that's just like, it's just like almost like a tent post with pegs on the sides,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, it's an auger system.
Threads right in.
What ends up happening is you have your main helix and you have a termination piece, which is the top head where the swivel goes. They primarily work off of hydraulic pressure. Once they get to, I think it's 1,200 pounds of pressure, it might be a little more. Once they hit those levels, they keep going until the termination piece is flush with the bottom, so the head is exposed. And that's when they make the attachment. Actually, one thing that's not shown on this picture is at the base of the actual cord system, there's a ball that keeps any chain that's attached to it suspended as well. So there's literally no drag on any of the area.
Thank you. And the second question is, and maybe it's there and I can't see, I don't have that in my picture here, but what is at the top? Is that like a buoy?
I'm sorry,
Like a
what?
skinny buoy at the top? For the,
That-
when the boat pulls up and you go to hook it, right?
That might just be a mooring ball that they use.
Because you're not gonna use it, you don't use the regular balls, right?
No, it's a regular mooring. Yeah, this is just this diagram. The mooring itself it's got a ball with a collar where you can actually coil your pennant into it.
Okay.
So, and the pennants, I believe, are like 3/4 inch, 12-foot pennants.
So what's being paid for is the helix anchors, the bungee cord that you called it, and the new mooring itself, right?
From the
ball.
mooring right to the cleat of the boat.
It really just includes, well, it's $2,500 is what
Correct.
you're getting. And so primarily to cover the cost of the helix anchor
Yep.
and the elastic rod. Because the other pieces, the boat owner may want.
If they want to keep their stuff, they can as long as it fits through the small piece of chain at the top, they can utilize all their own equipment.
I think that's
Yep.
great. That'll really clean it up.
It gives us an opportunity to looking at gridding that portion of the harbor too, and that's our first step because we've spoken with some engineering firms to come in and look at what it would take, because having a boat that's 17 feet with 18 inches of draft sitting in 14 feet of water, when we have bigger boats that are striking bottom, we need to really place the boats with like vessels, and it's time to get these things organized.
And with this anchor system, the bungee cord, as you call it, is suspended enough off of the bottom of the ocean floor, so that there's no way, even if the boat drifted back, it couldn't pull it down to kill the eelgrass, right? Is that
Correct.
what I'm taking from this picture? I think it's the same as that picture. So it can't pull it down.
It doesn't, because it's buoyant, it's naturally buoyant.
Right.
It doesn't, I was out at one of the other locations on Friday, and the boats were off somewhere, and you get see the mooring ball, and then the elastic rod just like floating. So it's naturally buoyant.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I had to ask because I found that kind of interesting, but that's really very good.
One of the things that we, in the agreement that we've worked out, it does call for maintenance. And because of the nature of the materials, they should be inspected every year to ensure that there isn't any growth, because growth can obviously add weight.
Right.
So
And
some
that-
systems, so you don't want to add anything to the road that could potentially bring it down.
And then after May, right, 2015, after May, you're gonna find another 4.5 acres, right? And then you're gonna, 5 acres or 6 acres, then you're gonna come back to Gary again, and you're gonna finish our mooring fields, right? Is that a maybe?
Well, I think
I'll take a maybe.
we're actually building an incline safety area, but we're not building a deck.
Just keep us in mind, because this is pretty cool. This will be really good.
But I appreciate you
Yeah.
reaching out like that.
Thank you.
Mr. Tropiano?
Anytime.
I'm all set. Hey, this is
Just to further this, now the moorings, we will own those moorings, Gary?
The person that has the mooring that's within the harbor, that currently existing in that location, it's theirs to go. If they find that they have no further use for it, it would revert back to the town.
Okay. And the other piece, just so everybody understands, if you go into Marion, into Inner Harbor, if you look at the way the sailboats are set there, because you don't have to have an extra road for length in order to have 7-to-1 ratio of line, to depth of water.
Correct.
You can actually put everybody in quite tightly, and you can really maximize the use of the area of the land you have on the water surface.
Yes, you do. You
for
can
the
actually,
number of boats there.
for some areas, it's actually, it might be better to move, once they're set up into a more compact mooring field, that leaves a lot more open area, so the eelgrass is not affected by anything in that waterway at that point.
Any other questions? Mr. Sullivan?
No question. I just wanted to thank Mr. Buckminster. I don't think anybody understands how much work was put behind this, and you were like, I guess the analogy is a dog with a bone. You weren't letting this one get away. So between Massport, I appreciate it, and Gary, it's a great thing for the town. So,
Massport really, they spent some time here and spent some time really hashing out this issue, so I thank you. Massport was very generous for this.
Thank you for everything.
We need a motion
Yeah.
to accept the grant. Mr. Tropiano?
So moved.
Second.
He hasn't done it yet, Peter.
He's not quick enough.
I move that we accept the funding of Massachusetts Port Authority for the mooring upgrade program.
Of up to?
No, we don't need up to anything. We're
Second.
accepting the
Second.
money, whatever. If they want to give us 200, we'll take it. We're
Motion
accepting
by
all the
Mr.
money you'll give us.
Motion by Mr. Tropiano, second by Mr. Titlebaum. Any questions? None heard? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? 500.
Thank you so
very
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for taking the time to come down.
Good night.
Appreciate that.
All right, next on the agenda is a presentation by Swiss Beach Association. Improvement Association, that's right. I know, I used to be a member of that once upon a time.
Jack, you're going to go first. You're going to go first, and I'm going to make a brief presentation. And then John, what do you want to say?
All right, let's go.
Fine. Oh, if you want to, just jump in. Okay, thank you. What's up?
It'll be easy to see.
Thank you, yes, please.
Thank you, yes, that would be nice, yes, thank you. Oh, thank you very
That was
much.
never a problem for me, don't worry. Can you open this one?
Certainly.
Well, sir. Thank you very much.
This table, it's a little shaky. Can you get it? Oh, that's good. It's cold. I think that's it, yeah.
Is it working now?
Bob, you're all set. I fixed it. I'll send you the bill. You know, they started July 7th.
Don't believe him, Jeff. I'm going to make a brief intro and introduce you. You're going to go through it, and I'm going to finish with a statement. All right. Mr.
We all
Chairman?
set to go?
Yes, sir.
Everybody please be quiet. Go ahead, Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Mr. Chairman, respected members of the board, the town administrator, and town council. My name is Bruce Savageau. I'm currently the president of the Swifts Beach Improvement Association, and I have been for about 3 years now. What I'm going to do, if I may, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, is I'll introduce us. I'll have Mr. Bostwick make a brief presentation on the screen, and then I'll finish up with a brief statement, if that would be allowable.
Thank you. Go ahead.
First of all, this is Joan Goldfarb, who's on the Conservation Restriction Committee. This is Janet Nichols, who is the treasurer, the secretary of the SBIA. This is Jack Bostwick, who is a member of the association. So Jack is going to start us off.
Good evening, everybody. How many of you were here 6 years ago when I made this presentation showing the land in question? Anybody up here?
I was in the audience, not up here.
Okay, and it was our biggest town hall meeting. I've actually lived in the town now for 8 years and built a house here back on, at that point, on Swiss Beach. End of Swiss Beach, a little road called Ruggo Street. So obviously, as a new member of the community, and I look out at this, I wonder, is there going to be a day that this is going to inundate my house? Maybe. But tonight we're here to talk about the land that's right in front of us here. And I want to just pan that land right now. That's obviously the parking lot where people park to go to the beach. All right, Derek, what am I doing wrong? Got it. Okay, so now we're panning to the right, heading over to Swiss Beach Road. Now, obviously, this is a beautiful day, and it's a beautiful beach and a beautiful view. And then we go right over to Swiss Beach Road is ending just to the right there. So the land starts after the boat that's in question here that I thought after we had a meeting 6-7 years ago that, it was going to become a conservation land, and that was my understanding. But I think that's in question, so let me move on. Every so often, it can be an equinox, it can be a storm out in the water, it can be the remnants of Hurricane Sandy, but we're not talking about a major storm here. And I travel about 90% of the time, so I don't spend a lot of time in my house. I wish I could. But I happen to be there one of the times, and I've seen it several times in my 7 years. But the people out here have seen it a lot more than I have. But what you're seeing here is not a big storm. And right at the base of this Ruggles Street right here, it's the street I live on, and you can see that's inundated, right? So you see the parking lot, you see part of the field, which we all know the field floods out, right? But as you swing over to the right, which is really the land in question, and at one time there was conversation about building homes on this land, you can see it's all underwater. And this is not a hurricane. This is a normal nor'easter pulling water in. And then as you go one more, this will be the last slide, you're seeing over to the right towards the road, that's all underwater too. So if anything was built there, or if anything was constructed there, this is going to be an ongoing problem. And as a resident, of course I have an interest, a personal interest in this, because I don't want things flying back and hitting the house. And that's what always happens in hurricanes, is the people on this side of it are the ones where their houses get destroyed. And I just put a little side note. I pay almost $9,000 for flood insurance, right? And I'm 13 feet off the ground. And the real joke of it all is that I have breakaway walls. If this gets flooded out or gets somehow damaged, I'm not really covered. The only thing that I'm covered is 13 feet up. So that would have to be pretty much a tidal wave to knock my house over and get flood insurance. But that's part of what's going on here. But I don't want any bullets in front of this house. Or I'm sure a lot of people that are here don't want the same thing either, you know, protruding back into the residences that are behind this. So that's pretty much, you know, what I wanted to point out, that this land, yeah, a lot of times it's beautiful to walk onto the beach and to hang out on, but if you've got a minor storm, you can have this possibility right here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor. Okay, well, first, before I begin, I wanted to say on behalf of the Board of Directors that we were extremely grateful for both Chairman allowing us a place on this evening's agenda and the opportunity to speak before the entire board. So we're very grateful with Town Council and the Town Administrator to be able to discuss this matter with you. The Board of, excuse me, what we're seeking is a conservation restriction. We're seeking a vote by this Board of Selectmen. We're seeking an affirmative vote to allow us to apply to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, again, subject to a favorable vote of the Board of Selectmen, to approve this document that we delivered to your office on the 21st, 2 weeks ago today. And this is the actual application. And we gave one copy to each selectman, the town administrator, the town council, to the Concom, and we have a file copy, and our attorney has a copy as well. The SBIA Conservation Committee has worked tirelessly for a number of years, evidenced by the almost 400 pages of supporting documents submitted with the Commonwealth Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs application to hold a conservation restriction on the property known as the Swifts Beach parcel. The application is made jointly between the SBIA and the Wareham Conservation Commission as co-holders of the proposed deed restriction. At the last Board of Selectmen meeting, it was stated that the concept of a conservation restriction was not mentioned in the warrant article authorizing the transfer of over $1.2 million in Community Preservation Act funds for the purpose of purchasing that land. We would like to correct that record. In point of fact, Article 17 of the fall 2007 town meeting warrant expressly states, quote, said land to be held by the Board of Selectmen for open space and recreational purposes, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey a deed restriction to a state-approved conservation entity, which is exactly what we are applying to the state for, to be approved as that conservation entity as a co-holder with the Concom. No other interpretation can be construed other than a requirement by town meeting to establish a conservation restriction on the property in return for substantial CPA funding. The concept of general municipal purposes, as it was discussed at the last selectmen's meeting, is not mentioned within the body of this warrant article. It is mentioned in Article Number 1 of the 2003 special town meeting. This article, Article 17, passed 243 to 91, far more than the two-third votes required. Article 17 is included in Section K of the supporting documents which you have in your possession. In addition, the original warrant article, Article Number 1 of the fall 2003 special town meeting, accepting the land by eminent domain, passed by a virtual unanimous vote, as Jack mentioned earlier, 648 to 4, in perhaps the largest town meeting turnout in living memory. A third warrant article in 2009 to establish a committee to dispose of the property failed at a subsequent town meeting. That makes 3 separate and distinct votes by town meeting for the acquisition, funding, and maintenance of the property for the purpose for which it was purchased: passive recreation in the form of a beach, open space, and environmental management. The entire reason for our request for a place on this evening's agenda before you is simply this: no Board of Selectmen, past, present, or future, has the ethical or moral right to nullify a town meeting vote. I have heard a number of members of this body, this Board of Selectmen, state time and time again that it is the obligation of the Board of Selectmen to carry out the wish and the votes of town meeting, despite any personal opinion to the contrary. We are urging you this evening, tonight, to vote affirmatively to allow the Swift Speech Improvement Association and the Wareham Conservation Commission to jointly apply to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to hold a conservation deed restriction on such a vitally important property, because only the Commonwealth can grant such a deed restriction. To that extent, the Board of Selectmen, in granting such an affirmative vote, is merely conducting a ministerial or pro forma function. Still, it is an important and vital function, not just because the state requires local approval, but because a conservation restriction on this particular property will support the Board of Selectmen's stated policy initiative to encourage local neighborhoods to invest in themselves, to improve their quality of life in the areas where the town can no longer afford to fund. For example, lifeguards, police details, garbage pickups at the beaches, beach sweeping, street cleaning, playgrounds, and so forth. Excuse me, I'm down to one hand. Thank you. The SBIA has stepped up to meet this challenge. We have established a playground account with the treasurer with the approval of this Board of Selectmen and have improved the town's playground on Swift's Beach. We are paying for 2 private vendor garbage collection services currently this season. The SBIA voted to pay for 2 beach sweeping passes this season and 2 separate street cleaning passes by the town as well. Next year, we will seek to pay for at least 1 lifeguard and detail police officer. Tragically, we have already suffered a drowning this season on Swift's Beach. We want to be in a fiscal position to provide for public safety during the town's current monetary crisis. A conservation restriction will allow us to seek federal and state grants, as well as local CPA and open space funding to pay for such services. This is why a conservation restriction is so vital to the town. We would like to serve as a template for other neighborhood associations in Wareham, in accordance with the Board of Selectmen directive of community participation and support. Finally, it is vitally important for the Board of Selectmen to approve this conservation restriction application in order to avoid a 10 taxpayer lawsuit under Mass General Law, Chapter 214, Section 3, subsection 10, beg your pardon, which states in relevant part, any actions to enforce the purpose of any gift or conveyance which has been accepted by any town of the Commonwealth for a specific purpose, in trust or otherwise. Such action shall be commenced only by the Attorney General or with leave of the court, 10 taxpayers of such town. And at the discretion of the court, award the plaintiff's costs, including reasonable attorney fees to be paid by the defendant. Any such suit would be filed to seek either a remand of the Board of Selectmen's vote if this application is defeated, or in the alternative, a lawsuit to compel the town to disgorge $1.45 million back to the CPA fund for breach of agreement and misrepresentation at town meeting. This is exactly the admonishment that you gave your board, Mr. Chairman, at the last meeting, and would be devastating to Wareham. We obviously and honestly have no interest whatsoever in pursuing that remedy. We believe that this is in the best interest of the community. And just to finish up as far as rules and regulations governing this particular subject, Section 12A of the Community Preservation Act states in relevant part, a real property interest that is purchased with monies from from conservation funds shall be bound by a permanent deed restriction that meet the requirements of Chapter 184 of the Mass General Laws, limiting the use of the interest to the purpose for which it was generally acquired. And under Section B, the legislative body, here that's us, that's the town meeting, may delegate management of such property to a nonprofit organization created under Mass General Law 180 or 203. We believe any decision other than an affirmative one may in fact be construed as arbitrary and capricious, and we are asking you with all honesty and integrity to side with us and do what is in the best interest of the town and what the town meeting voted for 3 times, and put this to rest so that there is no further conflagration in the town of Wareham over something that should have been put to bed 7 years ago at least. We thank you for listening. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Titlebaum?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak to the merits of your proposal at this time. We've just heard from you folks. We have the packet before us. Certainly we can go through that. The only thing I would say is that I was the one who said a couple of weeks ago that the words conservation restriction had never appeared in a warrant article as put on a town warrant, and I'll stand by that. It was the motion that was made at town meeting that contains the language conservation restriction. So that may be an arcane distinction for most people. I think, you know.
No, it's a pertinent legal argument that you're making, and it's actually a correct legal argument. However, we're not here in a court of law at the moment. We're talking about what the town understood and believed they were voting for and why, and ultimately what's in the best interest of all of us. That CPA money belongs to all of us. The town didn't write a check for this property. CPC wrote that check, and the voters spoke very affirmatively 3 times. But you're absolutely correct as to the legal merit of your statement. You're absolutely right,
Yeah.
legally.
I just wanted to clarify that because,
It made good sense.
yeah, and that's all I have to say. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Mrs. Whiteside? Mr. Holmes?
Well, you know, I read this email, and one thing that typically bothers me, well, I'll do my best. One thing that typically bothers me when I read an email is when I get down to the end and there's pretty much a promise of a lawsuit. And then I get home, and there are phone calls saying that if you do this, we have 10 people that are going to sue you on the other side. So, this whole lawsuit thing, if it is about the town, I don't know why it seems like a threat to me. I mean, maybe
I
it
understand.
wasn't intended that way. But the promise of a lawsuit in an email, when you're trying to get something done to work together, and one argument doesn't support the other.
I absolutely can't disagree with a thing you just said. I was very reticent to have that placed in the letter, but it was decided by people, and quite frankly, who are very frustrated because their residents, they've been paying, and I know, listen, I sat in that seat, I heard the same arguments. We pay taxes, we have the rights, when you can't, take our beach away. I get it. I get where your situation, and I get your position. I understand. I can assure you that we as an association will do everything conceivably possible not to go down that road. It's in there because council will advise you, as it has to be as a matter of record, or we may in fact lose our position in an attorney general complaint or something along those lines. I didn't like it. I don't like hearing it. When I sat
You
there,
signed, with all due respect,
I did
Bruce,
sign
you
it.
signed this letter.
I did sign it. I
It
did.
says, most respectfully, Bruce D. Savageau.
and I signed it.
So who
and
wrote the letter?
I wrote the letter at the direction of my board and members, again, who are incredibly frustrated by where we are in the time frame of this. I agree with you. We're not interested.
I
in
don't,
letting-
I don't like that, and you know me long enough. I don't like that kind of stuff. So when that stuff appears, if I could just finish my thought, I have.
Please, excuse me, but audience, please be quiet.
Oh, I can't hear that.
Thank you.
Right. My only point of that is that when I hear that and see that, what should be I don't know, it seems like a friendly request. I like to hear from the guy that we pay to represent us, and I'm not sure, is Mr. Bowen planning to make some kind of statement here, Mr. Chairman?
Could I just answer your point, Mr. Holmes, briefly and
Oh,
before
sure.
council?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. I get the stick approach. I get how insulting that can be. I've been on the working end of that many times.
You have.
I will tell you, though, if you read the rest of the body of the letter, we really are spending a lot of our own money, which is, in the grand scheme of things, not a lot of money. We all get that. But we're spending what we have. We're attempting to raise more so that we can support the town. We can provide services. And so, it should hopefully balance out.
Yeah, I'm not debating that point, Bruce. We do a lot of this stuff in onset. I'm sure you read about it, where we need something put up. We go out and find the money amongst ourselves. The town doesn't have the money, so we do the same thing. We just don't have a restriction. My point to the chairman and my fellow board members is that when I see those words in an email, I like to hear from the gentleman at the end of the table that we pay. I know you're a lawyer and Peter's a lawyer and everybody's a lawyer, right? But the guy that we pay is sitting right over there, and I guess my question to the chairman is Mr. Bowen going to be making any kind of statement as to his opinion about this whole matter?
Why don't we wait till Mr. Tropiano has a chance to comment?
Okay.
All right. So this is it. Does everybody here have the idea that somebody's going to build houses in there? Is that what you're afraid of? Is that what the fear is?
There's no fear.
Okay, because that's never going to happen. You know
I
that,
agree.
right?
It can't happen. I agree with
Yeah,
you.
it can't.
That's
I mean,
not the
it's
issue.
for open space and recreation purposes, and there's no way there's ever going to be any houses in there. But I got the impression from the gentleman who did the presentation that he didn't want to see houses in there or something built in front of him.
I believe.
And so I was concerned about that because, there's no way that that's ever going to happen.
I agree with you. I
Okay.
believe what he was referring to was the plaintiff actually got a superseding order
Yeah,
of
she did.
conditions from the DEP, which would allow for a duplex there.
Which is why it was taken to begin with.
Exactly.
Okay,
That's
which is
correct.
why the property was taken, at least one piece of it. The other two pieces belonged to other people. And one of the guys died, and he gave us one, and then the mother of somebody else gave us the other piece, and that's how we got the three pieces to begin with. I'm familiar with what the process was. But I see that being concerned. My other thing is what's the big fight if it can't be used for anything but recreation and open space? Okay, meaning it's open space, which it is now. And I'm just trying to get to what you're feeling here. I want to get to what's really sort of the crux of the issue. If that's the case, it is open space, and it's obviously going to remain like that. I mean, it's not going to be built on, so it's open. So what is the concern? What is the ultimate concern with what could be done there or what isn't done there or whatever? What is really the concern? That's what I want to know.
Can I speak to this one?
Yeah, that's
One
okay.
second.
Yeah,
As
I want to
a
hear.
layman, I think I should speak
No,
to
that's
it.
good, yeah.
Because when I was made that presentation, I was told that it was going to become conservation land. And I'm on the wetlands. This house to the left is wetlands. And I respect the wetlands, and I don't put anything on there or anything like that. When it becomes conservation land, I've seen too many laws in the United States changing in the last 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust that something can't be done, but I know that when it's under conservation land, it won't be done.
Okay, I get
So
that.
That's why I.
So
stand up
you're
for it.
thinking that the conservation restriction sort of finishes it in stone, basically,
exactly.
and
It
it
does-
can't be
it-
changed. Is
it
that what you're
does do-
saying?
And I see that in my own house that I live on the conservation land, and I respect it. And it changes the whole thing, I mean, I had the great guy David that works for the town down to my house every other week as we're building it, making sure everything's taken care of.
Okay.
On the conservation.
And
All right, I get that.
my
So
respo-
that's what I was trying to get to. I was trying to get to what the
It's a
what the
valid
bottom
question.
argument was.
My response, Patrick, would be, if we are all in agreement, it appears we are, it's very unlikely that any future development could happen there. Why not put a conservation restriction on the property? What is the harm of just fulfilling what the town voted for the use of their own money?
Well, I'm not sure that that's not going to happen. I mean, the other board, none of the board really talked about it yet. At some point, I'm not sure that that's not going to happen, that it's not going to get a conservation restriction. I just don't know how it's all going to lay out once all the facts are in and we, whatever. Remember, this is a different board than you said it yourself. How many of you were here when I heard the presentation before? So we have to kind of go through the whole thing ourselves.
Right.
I was here when the property was taken. I was actually a member of the board when the property was taken. But at any rate, that's just what I wanted to say. I just wanted to get to what the principle was, okay? And that's really all I have to say for today anyway, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Struck.
Mr. Bowen, do you have any comment at all?
Just very briefly, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, committee members. When it comes to a threat of litigation, if I can call it that, I personally never get all that excited about it because it's one of the tools in the toolbox of my business. So, when I read the letter, the part that, of course, caught my interest was, well, if there isn't a restriction on the property, there could be litigation with the disgorgement of the CPA money back to the CPA fund. And not intending any disrespect to the author or the advisors, you're really dealing with two cases, and I think Steve and Patrick's comments really kind of got to the fact that there are two different issues. Number one, if we were planning to put up a beach club, which I believe the plaintiff at one point had talked about, or a duplex, which the individual had also talked about. If we were doing that, there's no question in my mind that we'd be repaying all the CPA money back, because that's not consistent with Article 17 of the fall 2007 town meeting, which voted for open space and recreational uses. And to tie into Steve and Patrick's point, that's not what we're talking about. Really, the issue here is, when are we going to get a conservation restriction or a preservation restriction in place governing this property? Looking at it, and I have no fear of saying what I'm going to say publicly, because if it ever came to court, I'd be saying the same thing, and I think a judge would agree with me. The town has made efforts to get parties to hold restrictions on this property historically over the years, and those have been efforts that have not been successful. So I doubt that a court would order a repayment of all this money simply because the restriction was not yet in place. Really, what we're talking about here is whether it's going to be this group that holds the restriction or whether some other group that may materialize holds the restriction. And I'm not aware of another group, by the way. And that's not the sort of choice that's going to get you into a $1.2 million problem. And if it got you into a lawsuit over $1.2 million, frankly, I don't think the plaintiffs would have a very good case on it. Because at this point, it would be a question of, who do you give the restriction to? Or is there somebody who is capable of taking the restriction or who is qualified to take the restriction? Not, are we putting up a beach club or a duplex or something like that? As long as we continue to maintain the property in a manner consistent with that Article 17 vote, open space, recreation, those are the words, open space, recreation, then we're honoring the will of the people. Yes, it's my opinion that 44B Section 5C says that since we spent CPA funds, we will have to get a restriction at some point. But I don't think that a choice of one group or another group is really going to lead to the type of blockbuster litigation that, and Bruce, I'm not saying that you think this way, but that perhaps some people in the audience or some people watching on TV might think would ensue. Should there be a restriction? Yes, in my opinion, there should be. The question of which group is willing or qualified to hold it is a policy question.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Bowen.
May I say one last statement
ahead, Bruce.
before we wrap it up? I know your agenda's pretty busy tonight. I've always respected counsel. This particular counsel, he was our counsel when I was on that board. He was the counsel that defended the town in the eminent domain taking. He has represented the town admirably, respectfully, and well. And I cannot take issue with much of what he said. Again, we're not interested in that approach. It was placed on the record because we felt it had to be. However, we adamantly did not believe that the plaintiff would have ever received $1.5 million for that land. We got the same basic advice from the judge that settle right now or this plaintiff's going to win a sizable judgment. I was the only one in the court at the time, and I wasn't permitted under our rules and regulations to make a decision on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. Counsel explained that to the judge, and very shortly thereafter, the award was given. We never thought we'd ever be taken for $1.5 million. So you never know in a court of law is the basis of my comment. Again, though, we do absolutely thank you for your time and opportunity, your respect, and your cordial discussion with us, notwithstanding the fact that I clearly understand, having been one of you, how distasteful it is to hear something like that. And we apologize if we did insult you.
No problem. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate all the time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Wait.
Okay, next up is continued discussions.
Why don't we
with-
wait a minute till everybody gets up?
next up on the agenda, could you silence, please, so we can keep going with our
Everybody,
agenda, please?
please take your
Thank you.
seat.
Can I get up and continue the discussion?
No.
No, ma'am,
No, ma'am.
this is not a public
No.
hearing.
That was a discussion.
No, it doesn't, it's presentation.
Okay,
I've been on this committee for a long time. and
Ma'am,
it's
please.
something that I can say something.
Please sit down, please,
sorry.
thank you.
All right, so the next up is the continued discussion on Swiss Beach property, which, does anybody have anything else?
I believe the only one that's, reason this is continuous because Mr. Holmes wasn't here at the last time, and
Yeah, right.
the discussion
You're
was
all set,
really
right?
on the property.
Okay. All right, so then next will be discussion and
One
possible
second.
vote.
There is one thing, since it's on the agenda. As you know, the property on one side is bounded by a drainage ditch. And every year, I believe, or at least every couple of years, we've got to get, and we're lucky they do it, we get Plymouth County Mosquito Control to come out and ditch the thing. 3 years since the last one. I guess we got to call mosquito control. One of the things I'd always thought, you know, being somewhat familiar with the property, would be, it would be nice if we could find some means to put some small bridges across that, a couple of small bridges, so that people don't knock that thing in, have to get them, you know, have to get the ditching equipment back out there again, and the ditching equipment is, you know, something tracked that runs along and scoops, and, you know, it's just like ditching a cranberry bog, only you're ditching sand out of a little canal. It would be beneficial to the residents out there because it would help to drain the wetland behind it where the mosquitoes do accumulate. That's why the mosquitoes control is involved, because there are mosquitoes when it doesn't get cleaned out routinely. So that's something I think that it might be interesting to see if we could bring that up before CETA the next time they're here, and see if there might be some means of getting CETA funding to put a couple of small bridges in so that people can get across that without caving it in. Because if memory serves, it's about 6 feet down from the, you know, you can stand in the ditch and then you got to jump up to look over the beach that's around it. And, you know, with people caving it in, it doesn't help the beach on either side. It certainly doesn't help the function of the ditch. So that's something I think I'd like to bring up at the next CETA meeting.
Okay.
And that's all I had to say.
All right, next is discussion and possible vote on land conservation 61A for Makepeace, 80 Makepeace. Are they here?
No, they are not here tonight.
Okay. All right, so, does anybody have anything they want to discuss with this? It looks like we've offered it to everybody and nobody wants it, so I guess we're just going to vote to allow them to go ahead and
Yeah,
vote not to
We've got
exercise our right.
We have got responses back that were required to the different groups,
Right.
and they've come back either no use for it, or the town can't afford it, et cetera, so we can go ahead and release the land.
All right, so I move we vote to not exercise our right of 61A on the property and current zoning of the 51 acres of land. And as, it's in your packet, by the way, there's actually a drawing of the land as printed. Yeah, you know what, that's a good idea.
Property description is map 111, part of lot
Hold on,
1,000
hold
containing
on.
52.17 acres, if you want to incorporate that language into your
All right,
motion.
so it's map 111, part of lot 1,000 containing 52.17 acres, more or less, located off Tyonet Road in Wareham, book 1408, page 89.
That ought to do it.
All right, that should do it.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tropiano, second by Mr. Titlebaum. Mr. Holmes, your question?
You just stole a
Let
stole
there
a
be
second from
light.
Judy.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry, I thought it was...
First question, Mr. Chairman, is I have two parcels here.
Who's silent
I
over
think.
there?
Are they both the same? Yeah, I got two parcel A's, or do I have a duplicate? Okay. And the second comment, it's not really a question, but a comment, is to Mr. Sullivan. Now, you know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, Mr. Sullivan, when we were talking about the school, I think I brought it up then that you had mentioned that any sale of those types of properties would go into a fund, that the town would be able to exercise, and this is what I was bringing up. At this point, we have no option to exercise, even if it was a great deal for the town, because we don't have the money. But we have that money put aside to reinvest back into the town and property, that this would be a case where we could actually look at it. once we had some money put aside.
This particular land...
Is that not correct?
Yeah, but this particular land, Steve, is completely landlocked, and this is a solar field that they're putting in there. So
Understood.
the town would have no access to it.
I
And you
understood.
wouldn't
I understand that,
instant-
but this is what I'm trying to say, is that when these issues come up, and we had a kitty, or we had a fund from the sale of some property, that we could actually seriously look at these things.
Yeah, you can use those funds for real estate purchases. Like anything, you'd have to appropriate it through town meeting.
Sure. I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
you know, you had mentioned that about the fund the other night, and this is the kind of stuff I was talking about. Some of it down the road may make sense, but now we don't even have a choice. So I think that's it'd be a good hand-to-hand issue. Thank you, that's all.
Okay.
We'll go back. Mrs. Whiteside made the second. No other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500, Froggy.
Okay. Discussion of BOS warrant articles. I don't have anything in here.
We don't have anything here. I believe that
August.
Attorney Bowen has some list of a few articles that we were talking about. I just want to make sure that because of the time frame, if anyone on the board has anything they want to bring through, we have to bring it back up on the 12th next week, because we have a pretty tight deadline. I believe it's the 15th.
We need to fix the sewer issue.
Yes, that's something I know Patrick and I have discussed. Right now, we still have a pending authorization voted by town meeting in 2007, 2008, sometime around that time frame, to go forward with Contract 3. We know that, I believe it was you, Mr. Chairman, and also our sewer director.
Mr. Campino.
Met with the DEP and went over the current wastewater management plan that's on file with the DEP and banged it around with them, and DEP's advice was to essentially look at other areas of town. They felt that the sewer capacity would be better used perhaps in trailer parks and other areas of town rather than going ahead with Contract 3. So what I think would be appropriate would be to first rescind the vote that still has an authorization for Contract 3, get that off the books, and then from there go ahead and file an amended comprehensive wastewater management plan with the DEP, reflecting what they and the sewer director believe should be the current priorities.
I think that makes perfect sense, actually, because, you know, frankly, the area in Contract 3, it's not affordable. And it just won't be.
And the other issue is that Swift speech really does need to be fixed up.
Well, and we talked about that, and we'll get to that when we do the liaison report, but
It's a different issue.
it's a different issue.
And the other question, of course, and it arises somewhat out of the discussion tonight with Swiss Speech, and you know, I picked up, as Patrick did, on the first gentleman's concerns about something being put in front of him.
Yeah.
You know, there's no reason, and I agree with Mr. Savageau that this does not belong listed in our deed of taking as a property that's held pursuant to municipal purposes. That's language way too vague. It is indeed a recreational parcel. It is indeed a parcel that people use for beaching, bathing, and boating purposes. There's no reason why town meeting, for example, couldn't vote to rededicate that land, as it has in the past with municipal holdings, to specify that it be held for those purposes. I think it takes care of some of the concerns that people might have, however unfounded they might be, that somehow the town's going to put up a 10-story hotel there, while at the same time maintaining the character and the original reasons for which we took it in the first place, which was to provide access to the beach and to tie 3 other parcels, 4 actually, if you count the 2 that were also accepted by the town at that town meeting, tie it all together into one beachfront for people to use as a beach.
You know, conservation restrictions, like anything else, can be changed. Anything can be changed. There's nothing that's written in stone. Nothing. No matter what you apply to that property, it can be changed. Whether it's an act of the legislature or an act of somebody, but it can be changed. There's nothing that's written in stone forever. Once upon a time, they used to have these, used to own to the high water mark on the road, remember? The beaches and all that? And that's all changed now. everything's changed, so.
Can we get back to this?
All right.
So what is the deadline again?
Well, we really would have to have.
For us, the Board of Selectmen articles is the 16th?
Well, basically, all boards, committees, commissions have to have their articles in by the 15th of August.
15th, that was the day off.
So basically, we should have something in place, at least, if we're gonna do something, I suggest we have a placeholder in by that period of
Well,
time.
he
So-
needs to get working over there, get cracking.
Not he.
Yeah, you, don't look around, you're the one.
No, actually, we need to get cracking and then give him something to read and look at to make sure it's a legal document
Well, I
that
think
works.
we've already given him what we want to have in it, what we want to do for the change on the sewer issue. And I think it's up to him to put that together, to be frank.
That's a pretty simple article. I mean, I'm more than happy to take on the task of working with
Well, it's not a
council
simple,
on these.
that's not a simple
Well,
article at all. 'cause
rescinding
you're gonna be
a prior
asking-
vote is pretty simple.
Well, but I don't know that we're rescinding the entire vote, are we? Or are we just amending it?
Well, we've already spent the first, we've already spent the money on the first two, so the only thing hanging out there is the third.
Mr. Bone, go ahead, please.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask if there might be a volunteer or two who'd be willing to sit with me on Thursday to go over these things. I actually spent quite a bit of time over the weekend mulling over the various sewer issues, and it was one of those unfortunate situations where the more I thought about it, the more questions I had by the time I was done. So some quality time on Thursday would be great.
Okay. All right. Is that it?
Mr. Titlebaum, are you gonna sit with them?
Yes?
I'll go over some of the, on the comprehensive wastewater management plan, since I sat in at the DEP meeting on that. We'll have Mr. Campina come as well. I think if we're gonna do an article there, it's gonna be a placeholder, because I believe it's gonna take a little bit of time to sit there and actually lay out what you're actually talking about. It's gotta be a
Well,
specific article.
Your explanation is going to take some time. Your article itself is going to be very basic.
Yeah.
But what you want to get through to the FinCom to be produced in their handbook has to lay out the justification.
All right, so the 15th. And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, what was the date for the citizens? Do you recall?
Citizens
Do you have that off the
petitions,
top of your head?
Anybody have a copy here? I
They're
don't.
45 days out, so if we can figure it out from the calendar. So we're
So
meeting.
they have a couple more weeks than we do.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
September, second week September.
I thought, yeah, that's about what I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We could always ask the moderator.
Thank you, Mrs. Whiteside.
Yeah, we can move along. That's easy to figure out.
Yeah, September 12th.
Thank you. Oh, so it is the 12th. I know it was around the 11th.
Yep.
So it is September 12th. Thank you.
All right. Everybody set there?
Yep.
Continued discussion on private roads. I don't have anything in the packet here. I have nothing.
No, I think we had planned to have that in there because Mrs. Whiteside has a volunteer working quite hard, so
I'll bring that
Mrs.
up today.
Whiteside can update us on it.
Okay. I'm gonna bring it up in,
2 seconds. I
Okay.
can do it.
all right,
Yeah,
go
quick.
for it.
The problem of figuring out what are public, town-accepted roads, private ways, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is really made difficult by the fact that there are, in fact, 8 lists that appear to be complete and that state that they are complete. I will just give you an example of where some of them come from. The police department, the 2 fire departments, the town clerk's office, and the planning office, okay? So there's a few people working on this project, and what they're coming up with first is the town-accepted ways that we know are town-accepted ways through a town meeting vote, which was then properly guided through the registry and the registration and the recording process. I also, and the individual has also had long conversations with Mr. Rowley, previously our town engineer, as was his dad, and there's an enormous amount of information available to us through them. It'll be another couple of weeks before the report is able to be discussed with Mr. Slavin, Mr. Menard, and Mr. Sullivan. The individual will give the report there, and then it will be brought forward after their discussion.
Well, 3 weeks out or 4 weeks?
I would say 4 weeks at the moment because the Onset Fire and Water District is in the process of updating their list, and they don't want to work with an incorrect list.
Thank you.
Is that
Mr. Titlebaum.
Just further to that, I actually was provided with an opportunity by the municipal maintenance director. I think this was a scheme by Mr. Sullivan to punish me for maybe not jumping on board his
Yes, we
original
deci-
proposal to set regulations. So he set out to have my kidneys damaged by riding around in an actual dump truck out in some of our more challenging roadways.
You didn't get the real good one, though.
It was eye-opening to some extent to see how deteriorated some of these dirt roads especially have become. I understand the need to make sure that the roads are brought up to some kind of a standard, so to make them more plowable. I can certainly see how equipment gets damaged out there. My concern always wasn't that we would need to do this. It was that we would need to do this in sufficient time to give people an opportunity to get out there and repair the roads. Clearly, they're not going to be able to do that this year, but I think with Mrs. Whiteside's work, with her people, with us going back and getting at the issue again, by next year, we will be situated to at least think about informing people, your road isn't quite up to snuff, you got to do some work, you got to fix this gully, you got to get that tree out of the way, and giving them an opportunity during the spring, summer, and fall next year, ahead of a winter season, to go out there and remedy the defects that make it difficult or even impossible, I think, in some places to plow. Some of these roads are just unbelievable. And one of the things I also found out was that previously we had been spending somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 a year ourselves, going out, grading, maintaining, putting gravel down, and everything else. And with the budget we face, we just don't have the money to do that anymore. What we can do is assist the citizens by buying these supplies in bulk so that they don't have to pay for a little bit of gravel. We can buy a lot of gravel and then apply that bulk rate to them if they want to come and have us do that maintenance. So there's a way out of this. Unfortunately, it's not going to be through town funds anymore, I don't think. I just don't see how it can be done. I'd love to be able to do it. I'd love to be able to find that money somewhere. I just don't think we can.
Mr. Tropiano.
I have one thing to say.
I didn't bring my tree with the rope and the little man
You didn't
yet.
bring your tree and a rope?
Nope.
Well, thank God, okay?
So you got another day
All
at
right,
it.
so listen. First off, I want to point out that if we get any snow, and I'm talking 3, 4, 5 inches, the town plows do not plow most of the roads, all right? They just don't. They have sub-plows that come out and plow all those roads, all right? So the town plows don't get wrecked, and the town doesn't pay for any of the repairs to their vehicles. They pay them by the hour for each use of the vehicle, and they don't pay for any of the damages to their vehicles. I know because I've done it for years, okay? Every town's the same way. That's how they subcontract them, and that's how it does. Now, the town plows do sand all of the roads, typically. Although we do have a couple of sanders that come in when it's really bad. They get a couple of sanders to come in and help out. But by and large, they sand all the roads, which means that they don't have their plows on the ground. They're sanding. So as far as town equipment getting wrecked, I suppose when they're sanding, they could have some issues going in and out of the potholes or whatever. But that, I mean, as far as that's concerned. But, you know, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Sullivan?
That's true.
We do have, our trucks do plow as well. We even have the guys that go out there.
You didn't let me finish.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, and Patrick, if you don't mind, you've stated on several occasions that the cost of the town and the town equipment to repair to do these roads is significant. Patrick is saying that while we do bear some of the cost, a lot of that cost is on the subcontractors, not the town.
We have, to our own vehicles, $18,000 to $20,000 in damages. That's $18,000 to $20,000 on just damages to our own vehicles.
Yeah,
I know
and-
because we have the invoices.
You know what? I agree that there could be $18,000 to $20,000 in damages on the trucks over the course of an entire winter in plowing. And you know what? Those will continue to happen even if you're doing a regular road. just regular roads, you're gonna have that problem. You're gonna need cutting edges, you're gonna have problems with springs, you're gonna hit manholes, and you're gonna have all kinds of things that happen. And you're gonna continue to have those damages, there's no question about it. Look, I've been plowing a long time. Long time. Okay? I'm 61 years old, and I've been plowing probably since I was 19. I used to plow for the state on Route 9. So I've been plowing a lot of years. And believe me, I've wrecked a lot of plows, and I've had to fix a lot of plows, and I've done all that stuff. So I understand how the situation works, and I understand that those costs are not necessarily going to go down because all of a sudden you stop plowing these roads. Because I'm telling you right now that the subs take most of those damages from us. If you could take the damages the subs put on and add it to what the town has, you'd be shocked. You'd be absolutely shocked. Okay, I know, because I've been there. I've done it for years.
You're saying it's okay to leave the road in disrepair because the town's not paying for
No,
the
that's not what I'm
repairs.
saying. You know what? If it was up to me, we've been taking care of those roads forever. And all of a sudden now we're telling the people, guess what? We decided we're not going to take care of your roads anymore.
Well, we're not.
Right? That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We've been taking care of them for 100 and whatever years, and now we're going to stop taking care of your road. Sorry, have a nice day.
How do you pay for it?
How do you think those
How do you
people...
pay for it?
Well, you know, they're paying taxes all along. They've been paying taxes for years. And we always managed to take care of it before. And roads plowing is sort of... First off, we don't do it that long. We do it a few months a year, okay, because that happens to be the season. But I don't understand where this is all coming from. All of a sudden, we want to shift all the burden of plowing these roads to the homeowners. It's almost absurd. I'm sorry, it's ridiculous.
It's in our bylaws.
You know what? I don't want to hear it. It's all crap, as far as I'm concerned.
Huh.
I just don't want to hear this. This is just baloney. And you guys can all buy into this, and you can all keep taking care of this, and you can go out there and charge people to plow their road and do whatever and keep doing that stuff, okay? But it's going to come back and bite you in the butt, I guarantee it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, to follow up on that, you know, I actually agree with him. There's two questions. You can't, in my mind, the first question is, you tell a taxpayer, and Mr. Chairman knows exactly where I'm talking about, you tell a taxpayer who's on one of these roads that, hey, bud, you're going to pay $15,000 for betterment, you're going to pay this, we're going to better your property, and his road looks like Gaza. And we've done nothing to help this guy. Mr. Gifford did, and now all of a sudden the answer to the poor bastard is, hey, tough, it's a private road. And you're saying, and this is where I'll fight to death with you, and you're saying it's okay to go plow the road when you're not willing to take a few minutes and go help the guy out and keep the road smooth, so it's, and that would reduce repairs. I mean, it's the whole catch-22, Patrick. You can't say forget it because it's a private road all year long, and then because you get 3 inches of snow, send a sub out to ruin his equipment. And the poor taxpayer is the one that's getting the baloney.
All I know is the taxpayers
Right?
are getting the shaft on this whole deal. That's all I can say.
Well, it's not about plowing where they're getting the shaft. It's about that road.
Well, they're certainly not getting the plow. That's what they're not getting.
So, I mean, are you willing as part of this? I don't know where you're getting the money, but wherever you're getting the money from, I mean, are you willing to send a grader out and assist these people during the year as well as plow when it snows?
You know,
Or do we charge them or let them go pay for that? They pay taxes. It's a private road.
well, what are you going to do? How are you going to handle it?
I don't know. You're saying do it.
I'm going to say do it right, because you know what? I'm saying you can't tell these people after all these years that all of a sudden we're just not doing this for you.
And you used to grade the guy's road.
We used to grade it
Every
yeah,
year.
Absolutely. They
You
used
go
to
grade it.
They
Twice,
had-
2,
matter
3
of fact,
times a
Charlie
year.
Maxim used to be the guy. He used to go around and he graded all the roads. How many years did he do that?
And then now you're telling him, we're not doing it. It's a private road.
Yeah. Well,
Costs money.
and you know what? So here I live on this side of town and I'm paying taxes, and I happen to live on a private road and you're not doing my road. But this guy, because his road happened to get accepted, you're gonna plow his road.
And
He's
grade
paying
it
the
and
same
fix it and
taxes,
repair it.
Same
It's the
land
same.
value, same everything.
It's the same story, Patrick. You can't be selective and accept the road and pay attention to the road just because it snows. Why don't you go grade it once or twice a year? Two.
That's
Why
up to-
not?
That's up to the guys to decide if that's what they wanna do. But they have to plow the people's roads. I don't care what anybody says. It's a
Well,
safety
but if the
issue.
road gets to a particular place, like where this guy's is, it looks like Gaza. You can't plow it anyway.
Fix it.
We aren't there right now yet.
Who's
guys.
going to fix it? I think that's part of Mr. Titlebaum's point, is who's going to fix it?
Mr. Titlebaum?
Yeah, I mean, our municipal maintenance budget is down about $1 million from where it was several years ago. You know, again, they identified to me out there at municipal maintenance that the annual cost of the town going out and working on private ways, private roads, what have you, exclusive of plowing, was between $150,000 and $200,000 a year. My understanding is that they were purchasing over $100,000 worth of gravel and pea stone and things like that to put down. And then, of course, you had, you know, a couple of guys out there all summer long. That's pretty much what they were doing. You know, this goes back to where the municipal maintenance was when I was a kid. We had, 50-something guys working there. Now we've got, what, half a dozen and a couple of people watching over them and a little bit of clerical staff? I mean, this is part of the contraction of government service when you don't have the money to pay for it.
And Mr. Chairman, to finish this point, and then I'll shut up because I know you're getting mad at me. But the part that is really stupid is we just went in front of this guy's house. He lives in contract 2, I guess it is. We just went in front of his house, dug that whole darn road up, right? Ran the sewer by his house, connected his house to the sewer, and left a road worse than it was when we started. Patrick.
Well, that's
How insane is that, Patrick?
That's insane because
Millions of dollars.
Every sewer project I
and we
know
left it
has
worse.
paving from one side to the other when it's done.
Didn't happen.
And if that didn't happen, then that's our own fault for putting out the contract wrong.
I think the
Because the agreement was
We did that everywhere else.
that whatever was there before
We did
they
it
started
everywhere else.
would be there after it was over. Mr. Bowen is sitting there. I'm sure he remembers that. But Patrick, I mean, when you go to somebody and you say, "Hey, we won't fix that," but yeah, you can pay $15,000 in the betterment. You can pay $6,000 to have somebody tie in. You can do all that
I
stuff.
know, dude.
And now you're going to tell the guy, "Hey, we're not going to apply your road either."
I know.
But somewhere, listen.
But you better get all your neighbors together and come on down and get on the list.
But
Otherwise,
you
you're not
still-
getting plowed anyway.
You still have to come
My
up.
neighbors don't want to get plowed. What am I going to do?
You still have to come up
Out
with the
of my
biggest
house.
answer of all.
I know. Yeah, come on.
Is
Remember your neighbors?
where does the money come from? That's the biggest answer of all. The question of all. Where does the 150 of maintenance and 150 of plowing costs? $300,000. Where's it going to come from?
Well, let's go back to where we started. This was strictly, the initial discussion here was just to finish up with the private and public roads so we get
Well,
an
that's what-
accurate list.
Your fault. You put this stuff on it.
I think that's what we're talking
I
about.
put it on there. No, we're
Come on,
talking
don't you know
about.
who you're dealing with by now? Come on, man.
It's $300,000. Where's the money coming from?
No, it
For the
isn't.
private roads.
It's
Where's
a-
it going to come from?
It's going to be a discussion once we have the initial piece done, which is what's public, what's private, because we can't even give anybody an answer what their road is.
So my buddy Dave doesn't get an answer again tonight.
No, because we haven't got it done yet.
The answer for that one is for the betterment. He paid for the betterment of being sewered. They did have the option to have their roads paved. However, that was an extra cost because that was not part of the sewer enterprise fund. They did not have their roads paved. We had the videos of it. It was left in better condition than when it was first done. However, after 2 years of no maintenance, it deteriorated
Wow.
and was worse than when it was before because they did not maintain it. So there was the option of that. The
But-
betterments by the sewer department were not to give everybody roads. If we want to give everybody roads, let's put forth an override for several million a year. We can give every single person in this town roads one at a time. It costs roughly $1 million a mile to bring a road that's a dirt road with no drainage up to snuff. And that's the reality of it.
I might just say this, Mr. Chairman, through you. to Mr. Sullivan, since you bring up the video. The video doesn't really tell the whole story, though, does it? Because if you took the video right after that road had been graded, and then you go out there today and you say to Dave, here's the video we took, and it's nice and smooth, right? So we did put it back the way it was. But if you took the video of the condition of the road today, the town wouldn't have left it like that, I'm sure. They would have fixed that road. So the timing of the video is important based on when Mr. Givet went out there last. I understand what you're saying. I remember the arguments from Mr. Campina that night about why we couldn't fix this poor guy's road.
Spirited discussion.
But, yeah, really, because that's what this is. I mean, listen, we never hold anything after the conversation is over here, but that's just how it goes. But the point is, I happen to agree with Patrick, but I also know that it has to be paid for. And where is the money going to come from? I mean, do we even say, Mr. Chairman, that for the next 5 years we put a moratorium on what is it, 90 money, and just say it goes to these projects and stop it? We did have a company come in a couple of years ago and give us a master road plan for Wareham. Do we take the dust balls off of that and look at that again? And then the question's going to be, I might pay taxes in town, because this is my last point. I might pay taxes in town, but if I don't allow you to drive on my road, I don't allow you to plow on my road either, Patrick.
Well, that we both agree on, because that's...
Because there's two types of private now.
Absolutely, that's...
If I can't drive my car on that tax...
That's right, you plow it yourself. If you want
Because I pay taxes for that road, too.
Then it's private, you do whatever you gotta do.
I
totally
pay
agree with
taxes for that
I
road,
want to
too.
point out that my road is private. However, it's completely paved edge to edge, and wasn't paved prior to me coming in there, when I moved in there. And it was paved with Chapter 90 money.
There you go. It costs you nothing.
Which, by the way, we
You
got a
weren't
letter
on the board at the
recently
time, were
that
you?
says you can't use Chapter 90 money on private roads.
Yeah, that should have been an accepted road then.
We should have accepted it after they finished it.
Mr. Chairman.
Technically
thank you
before
for
they
the
started.
indulgence of my questions. This is an important, this is
Technically.
an important point when we get down to,
It's going to be very difficult to solve.
when we get down to where's the money come from. We all agree that, you know, it's been going on for years, but our budget situation wasn't that way. So thank you.
All right, next, moving on. Discussion and
Everybody
possible
set?
vote on Board of Selectmen's Policy 0801. I didn't have time to deal with this, and I need to put that off for a little bit. Give me a couple of weeks, because I just haven't had time to go through it. Discussion of current towing policy. All right, what's this?
All this was here is we were looking at different ways of possibly generating more income for the town. There was a discussion about several different alternatives in towing, having basically, I think it was, Mr. Sullivan, was that a bid process? People would bid?
Yeah,
and
some
the town would
folks
get
have,
X number of dollars per tow or something like that?
yeah, another town has done that in the past. Frankly, it's at this time, I don't see us undertaking that. That's another large project that you're going to have to get all your ducks in a row before you step up to. So I do appreciate it being brought forward just as an idea and something to keep on the back burner if any of us see any information on it, because I would think we look through this before we take any further actions.
Thank you. I had scheduled it 2 months ago because it was
Okay.
mentioned before.
All right, next up, any other town business not related, not reasonably anticipated last 48 hours, Mr. Titlebaum.
None.
Mrs. Whiteside. Mr. Holmes. Myself, no. Mr. Slavin.
No.
No. All right, next, town administrator's report, please.
Thank you very much. There'll be nothing on private roads on this report, I promise you.
All right.
What I'm trying to do is put together a monthly report on the parking kiosks, because I think it's rather than the weekly. So this is through July 31st. The parking kiosks have generated total revenues in the amount of $79,665.50. Onset Pier, which has 2 kiosks, brought in $53,473.75. The total transactions, which is besides the revenues, is interesting, 8,221 transactions. The Temple with CW Bishop lot has brought in $11,826.50 with a total of 2,786 transactions. The 2 kiosks on Onset and Union Ave, the revenue they've generated is $7,352. But remember, they're only $1 an hour for a 2-hour maximum. Their total transactions have been 5,699, which when you look at it, the amount of parking spots on the pier versus that, you can tell there's a lot of flow in and out of those parking spots and a lot of transactions. Shell Point, $7,013.25 with a total of 2,053 transactions. So all told, we've had over 18,759 transactions at the kiosk. The total collections for the month of July alone were $50,467. And as such, we anticipate exceeding the $90,000 goal by...
We put a kiosk at Town Hall and one over, get a bunch of, maybe we can put one at the beginning of each road for plowing.
Some of the employees are worried we're going to put one of those in.
Well, we'll just charge the out-of-town ones like you.
That's a lot more, double. I've been speaking to Mr. Pina about this topic, and one of the things I think we need to bring forth is, it's almost in conjunction with the kiosks, is formalize the Heinz Field lot. Now, I don't mean paving it. We know that's not going to happen but there's something we can do to make that more attractive and make it more formalized in the parking. And that's what I'd like to see. May reach out to CETA and speak to Mr. Pina about, to use their funds. I know that the Beach and Tourism Committee has been working with GATRA. If you've seen the excellent job of what GATRA did behind next to the fire station and that gas station, they did a beautiful job right by the train platform. And that was all their funds that did that, putting a new topping on and the striping. Heinz Field could be a perfect little mini hub for them, and to make sure that there's more parking and bringing people to the businesses and Onset.
Yep. No, that was GATRA money. That was done through the MPO program from the state. I believe they were given something on the range of $100,000 in their budget. And they were able to do our project as well with that.
Very nice. You got any road money?
Not yet. Maybe have some plowing money for you, though.
Tomorrow we're continuing with the biweekly financial team meetings, which is consisted of the finance director, myself, the town accountant, and the director of assessing as we continue to move forward with setting the FY15 tax rate. As we know, even with everything going on, we still have a lot of the day-to-day activities, and the Department of Revenue has set some pretty tight standards for us to get it done.
I know. Supposed to be in there.
We also have, as you've probably seen in the local papers, TED 2 is coming to town to film.
Wednesday, Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursday. They are using some of our facilities, and they are paying some monies towards it. So it's besides Wareham being discovered as it has over the last few years, they are bringing some a little bit of revenue.
Where are they going?
By the I always call it the Mill Pond
Mill Pond,
Diner,
yeah,
but
I
now I
saw
think
them
it's
out
the
there
Tremont
scouting.
Mill Pond Diner. So
Joe Ziti bought that.
yeah. So it's maybe we can get the scouting team to work with the chief and the municipal maintenance director, take them around to more spots in town. I think they'd be surprised what they could find. The last item is Wareham Community TV had been interested in the building across from the middle school, which had been labeled as the Old Boys and Girls Club. Recently, they've asked for other options. As such, with the amount of moves it would need to take, we are sticking with the status quo. There's nothing being moved at that building, and there's nothing being moved with the seniors and the supportive daycare program at this time. And I believe Wareham Community TV will look for some other spots. It's a shame because with the mission of the Wareham Community TV being amongst the children, the educational aspect and the location was probably second to none.
Why
So,
can't they get in there?
they've asked for some other spots to look at, and
Why?
it's up to them.
Are we having some issues?
It would be,
No.
if they would like to look at, they don't have to rent town facilities or lease town facilities. So I would think that's probably up to their board of directors as to what direction they want to go. As far as the timeliness of it, unfortunately, because we'd choose probably not to move things during mid-school year, everything that's going on, you're talking a fairly significant move. I don't see that building being feasible until maybe next summer.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions on this. The old Boys and Girls Club, who owns that building?
We do.
We do.
It's Town of Wareham,
Yeah,
correct?
it's in our control.
All right, so it's under our control. Since when did we give
We
any
didn't.
control to build the gymnasium in there?
We didn't.
Nobody
Or a
did.
fitness center?
Nobody
No.
did.
Then what is going on here? Do we just squat on property?
They're currently using the facility.
We have an opportunity in that facility, if you don't mind me finishing. We have an opportunity in this facility, once again, to bring some much-needed revenue, Patrick, and this isn't a fee, into the town of Wareham through Wareham Community Television. That does a lot of work for the town. They were willing to bid. They were willing to do the whole 9 yards. We have squatters who come in and took over the building. There's a lot of questions about who did work in that building, who paid for the work in that building. There's a lot of questions about did that stuff go out to bid, and now you're telling me it's under the control of the 5 members of this board. I don't ever remember any of that coming before a Tuesday night meeting. Maybe it was a Wednesday night meeting or a Monday night meeting. But this situation here is not very good. And God forbid, something happened to somebody in that one of our students in that building, and there's been no acknowledgement by this board, by policy or by decision, to allow our children in that building exercising with private contractors coming in and doing work. God forbid somebody get hurt, because that guy down the end of the table will be right back in the courtroom again here. So we need to take a look at this arrangement here and figure this out. Now, I see people shaking their heads at me, but we need to make sure that this is legitimate, what's going on here.
We have two issues. Your issue is correct. When you're complaining about WCTV, the directors of WCTV are not in accord about moving into the Boys and Girls Club. There's at least 2 members that are looking at other property. The property is the Snow and Jones property across from the minor school. They have not made up their mind what to do. Unfortunately, because of that and the timing and everything else, at this point in time, the town of Wareham has basically pulled the offer because they won't make a decision. That decision, with them moving, if they were to move in there, would involve changing things at the multi-service center. There's a lot of pieces that all interact together. So at this particular time, they have not made a decision of what they're going to do and where they're going to go. So that piece of it is just off the table. As far as, the weight room and stuff like that, Mrs. Sullivan and Mrs. Hood should be able to take care of that issue. It was
What does
discussed
that mean,
already.
take care of that issue, Alan?
Well, the issue is using the building without authorization.
Without author, is something being taken care of here?
Will be.
Yeah, the use
If
of
it's
the
private, just say so, and
It's not
we can
private.
have another private meeting about it, but what's going on?
No, that's the use of that buildings, as you know, falls under the town administrator. I'm working with the school superintendent to make sure that everything's taken care of. As of right now, without WCTV going in there, if we kept that as a vacant building, it would cost us more than anything else.
Who's
Probably
paying
the
all the bills?
insurance.
Who's paying all the bills now?
The school is.
And who paid all the bills to have the repairs done?
We didn't do that, so that'd have to be the school.
Who's control? Somebody's missing my point. When I asked who controls the building, the town controls the building.
Correct.
Now I'm asking who did the work in the building that's controlled, and nobody knows.
I know. The work was
Did
done.
you give authority on your own?
No,
Mrs.
sir,
Whiteside? I don't think so.
No, I did not. I
No.
asked who did the work. I got a tour of the building, and I asked who did the work and was told that it was done by volunteers who were electricians or, whatever. And I was not given names, so I can't give you names. The fact of the matter is that the thing was done sub rosa.
It's what? Done what?
Sub rosa, that means below ground.
Oh, boy.
It was, one of those.
Quiet.
It was a mushroom.
You know what?
You still can't do it.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So what are we doing to resolve it?
Mr. Sullivan is taking care of it.
Just because it's after the fact, you can't just leave it up
Mr.
there.
Sullivan is taking care of it.
Well, I'd like a report and then find out how that gets taken care of.
Okay,
Because when it says the town, that means this board.
right. Okay,
So
liaison
that's not
report.
day-to-day activity in terms of, when somebody sues the town, that's not day-to-day
No,
activity.
you're right.
Okay.
Liaison reports, Mr. Titlebaum.
Yeah, just one. This afternoon, I went out to the Cemetery Commissioners meeting, 2 hours and 35 minutes long. A lot of work got done. A lot of outstanding minutes were cleaned up. I believe there's one meeting from the previous fall where there's some more reconstruction work needed to be done before the minutes are done. The other ones were all adjusted and voted on, and so that's all been taken care of. Deeds have been brought back in. New deeds were executed today. A lot of work got done. I'd like to thank Director Menard and also Administrative Assistant Mary Healy for hanging in there during a fairly lengthy meeting. At the conclusion of the meeting, the chairman, Nan Miller, requested that somebody else take over the chairmanship, and there was a 3-0-0 vote to install Mrs. Ekstrom as the new chairman of the Cemetery Commissioners. So there was a change in leadership. They are going to meet routinely on the first Thursday of the month out at Municipal Maintenance. 4 o'clock is the tentative new schedule. So I'm hopeful that this will, I think they got themselves back on track today, and it was really good to see that. And I appreciate the work of all the cemetery commissioners as well.
Ms. Whiteside.
I'd like to follow up on that report. There were several reasons that I did not go to that meeting because I've been the liaison, and I will simply list some of the problems that the cemetery commissioners had. They had several violations of the open meeting law. They had missing minutes. They had inadequate or incorrect postings. They had failure to follow the charter provisions in that they did not meet on a monthly basis as required by Section 7.5 of the charter. The failure to return legal documents, i.e. deeds, within a reasonable period of time. I think there were 2 deeds that were signed in May that may have been returned today. Failure to keep in contact with the clerical staff at municipal maintenance, including forwarding documentation requested from town council and given to them in writing in town council. And then just one more, and it's very minor, but it's really not minor. Bad-mouthing town employees and elected officials and blaming them for not having their act in order. And I'm very pleased that the pressure that had to be brought to bear resulted in cleaning the act up. I appreciate it.
Is that it? Ms. Holmes, Mr. Holmes. Ms. Holmes.
I just want to say about they're not a committee in town, but I do want to say that last Tuesday night I spent some time with the chief and some of the rescue people down on the pier for the centennial fireworks there for the canal. And I want to say that Wareham's new ambulance is gets a thumbs up from Daddy Robinson It's a beautiful piece of equipment. Chief, he had a bunch of rescue people. There wasn't many people. There were actually, I think, more police and rescue people in Onset than there were people. And so I'll pass this along, but before anybody screams about the number of police officers, it was paid for by a grant. So, Mr. Sullivan, is that not correct?
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out. I know the Chief Walsh was receiving a little bit of heckling out there, but they had anticipated, and the Bourne itself had less people than they had anticipated. So, being prepared isn't the worst thing.
That was the first thing he said when I got out of the car. I think he thought I might have backed up over him because of budget issues, but and he wanted to make sure. But I did want to give those guys, and ladies in all of the rescue, and the police, and the water stuff. I mean, they said apparently there were more boats than cars. A huge amount of boats on the water. And we had folks there I saw from Barnstable and other communities. I mean, you see those groups working together. I mean, people can work together. So I just want to give them all a shout out and mention the grant money so that you don't take one on the chin, too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Tropiano?
All right, well, we didn't get to meet this week in the sewer department because we both had some conflicts and some things that came up, so we're meeting again on Wednesday. Our big push is to do the Swiss Beach thing. And it's been bandied about that maybe it could be done in phases and so on. I want to suggest that we don't do phases. I've been too long in this phase thing. I can remember a town I was in, man, they were going to have 3 phases of sewers. Well, to this date, they only have 1. They never got the other 2 in. And the cost of these things only keep going up. They never go down. So it's just better to bite the bullet, get it done, and get it over with. And not to mention the cost of savings in the amount of water that we're treating that's probably pure seawater will be gigantic. And just with that alone, we'll probably be able to help defray a lot of the costs. So we're going to be bringing that to you very shortly, and we're hoping that everybody's going to buy into that. So I'm just giving you a little heads up. Okay? You'll probably get that. And like I say, we'll meet again on Wednesday. There are a few other things we've been talking about. Most of the things have been going pretty good, though. Since we passed some of those new policies and things are starting to move along pretty well.
Good.
Okay?
Very quickly, on the 29th, of course, the canal had their celebration. I worked on the steering committee for that particular group. Both directors, Admiral Gurnett and Maria Oliveira, both wanted to thank the town of Wareham for their participation as far as having logistics ready and everything else and being available. It worked out very well. The fireworks went off well. And actually, our police chief was having people go off duty as the volume of the crowd just didn't come there, so the people weren't stuck there unnecessarily. And that's about all I have for today.
All right, next up, we're going to do minutes. I move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen Sewer Commissioners from June the 16th, 2014.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tropiano, second by Mrs. Whiteside. Any questions? None heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500.
Okay, next up, I move we approve the minutes of the regular Selectmen Sewer Commissioners meeting for July the 8th, 2014.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tropiano, second by Mrs. Whiteside. Any questions, changes? None heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500.
I abstained for 15 minutes.
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
500.
I move we approve the minutes of the regular Selectmen Sewer Commissioners meeting dated July 15th, 2014.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Tropiano, second by Mrs. Whiteside. Any questions? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Okay.
500.
All right, that takes care of minutes. The last thing I have. Yeah.
I just
Somewhat?
want one question.
Okay.
Mrs. Whiteside?
It's not on this, but I just want to clarify when our dog hearing is, because we've had
Our next meeting is this Thursday. We'll have an executive session at 6 p.m., and at 7 p.m. we'll have the dog hearing that's scheduled.
Thank you.
All right, so the last thing I have is a bill. Unfortunately, we don't have any invoice for it, so he just can't get paid.
Too bad.
No, I'm kidding. I move we approve the payment to the law office of Richard Bowen in the amount of $15,000.
Second. But with the caveat that we actually have the hard copy of the bill attached to the...
I have the bill in the office.
Motion by Mr. Tropiano, second by Mrs. Whiteside with the Crevat. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0.
Mr. Holmes has something he wants to say.
Mr. Holmes?
I'll be very, very brief. After
That's it. Good. All right.
after 15 very long years, after leaving St. Luke's, on Friday, I opened the Steve Holmes Group LLC. And so the work I was doing for Dell and others, I now will do for my family. As a result of that, tonight, in about an hour, Sean and I, my son, we're going to take a father and son trip that we haven't done in many, many years. It's long overdue, and we're heading to Georgia for a couple of weeks, so I will be absent. I'll be available and thinking of you all in prayer, and if Alan wants me to call in or something, I'll certainly be happy to do that, but we're going to plan to spend most of our time on the golf course and staying out of bars because he's still only 13. So I want to apologize in advance, but I also want to thank you for your support as I take a couple of weeks off.
You know what'll happen, right?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You know what'll happen. That means you'll be volunteering for a lot of things you don't know about.
I know. Listen, I'll be watching. So if Alan ever gets a thing, I'll call in and say hi, but maybe I'll just call you on your cell phone and say hi.
Consider all your questions answered while you're gone.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
All in-
Motion by Mr. Tropiano, second by Mr. Titlebaum. All in favor? 5-0-0. Good night, Wareham. Thank you.